Buonasera a tutti, good evening everyone. Benvenuti all'Istituto Italiano di Cultura di Los Angeles. Welcome. It's really nice to come on stage after such inspiring images and words. As you might have guessed, the reason for us being here tonight is that Italy today celebrates the Italian National Space Day, which is an initiative commemorating the launch of the first Italian satellite into space. It was the San Marco, which took place on December 15th, 1964, and that really launched Italy as one of the countries in the world at the forefront of space research. The program that we are offering tonight is titled How a Sustainable Space Program Benefits Society. And talking about the commitment of our country in this sector, we actually have a very short video, another video from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in Italy, Antonio Tajani.
Dear friends, in Italy, today is the day of the space. For us, it's very important to strengthen this sector, because through the space policy it's possible to work against climate change, it's possible to increase the number of companies working in more modern sectors. For us it's very important to work at European level. We are an important part of the European Space Agency. In Italy we worked hard for the Galileo constellation. There are a lot of satellites made in Italy. But when I was commissioner for industry, I signed also an agreement with the United States of America in this sector. They are American friends. We need to cooperate more on this. This sector is crucial for the future. Science, studies, university, we need to do more all together. Italy is ready for a better cooperation with the United States. We want to work together for paving the way for a better future for our families, for our countries, against climate change, for more industrial policy.
The topics just mentioned by Minister Tajani are really some of the topics that we will be exploring tonight with our speakers, and I really would like to say grazie to David Avino, the CEO of Argotec, Marco Lavalle, a scientist and a group supervisor at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory here in Pasadena, and to our moderator, Sara Susca, who also works as a scholar at NASA JPL. This event is a joint effort of our institute, the Consulate General of Italy in Los Angeles, and of course ISSNAF, which is the network of scientific scientists and scholars of North America. And I really would like to say grazie also to their president, Cinzia Zuffada, who is the engine behind this event, and also a series of events that we're hosting together with them throughout the year. Since this evening is all about collaborations, without further ado, I would like to invite to the podium for her welcome remarks Consul Lorenza Enrighi from the Consulate General of Italy in Los Angeles. Grazie.
Thank you, Emanuele. Buonasera e benvenuti. I convey the regards of our Consul General Silvia Chiave, who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight. So thank you, everyone, and welcome to the second event of the series, Building a Sustainable Future, dedicated to space and how space research and projects can benefit humanity on the occasion of the National Space Day, as Emanuele said before. I won't speak too long, since you will soon listen to the remarks of Ambassador Mariangela Zappia, our ambassador in Washington, D.C., that has given introductory remarks on Italy-US collaboration in space exploration activities. So we will listen to her. And let me just warmly thank our speaker that will be with us this evening. So David Avino, the CEO of Argotec, Marco Lavalle from NASA JPL, and also our moderator, Sara Susca. They will share with us their experience working in space science and technology development for the benefit of humanity. And a really special thank goes to Cinzia Zuffada, that is the president of ISSNAF, the Italian Scientist and Scholar in North America Foundation. So thank you, Cinzia, for organizing and putting together this event and for all your work to promote unity and collaboration among our scientists here. So we are really proud to have you here, and we strongly support ISSNAF, both nationally and through the creation of local chapters. ISSNAF contributes to creating connection among Italian excellences that give an important contribution in the field of research and science. And Los Angeles is a really important crib for our research and joint projects here in the US in the field of space exploration. And this is why we really strongly support the creation of ISSNAF LA chapter, and we hope to have it formalized soon. It is particularly important here in the US, here in Los Angeles, to show that Italy is a country of innovation. And we have this amazing community of Italian scholars and scientists that work with prestigious institutions like Caltech, for instance, and have a very important impact to promote and diffuse knowledge and understanding for better life and benefit all humanity. So we are really proud, and you are really a great resource to strengthen our collaboration with of the diplomatic community, with the academic and scientific institutions here. So before I leave the floor to Cinzia, I would like to show you this video of our ambassador, Mariangela Zappia, here in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being with us today for the Italian National Space Day. What I learned this morning, I didn't know. Why the 15th of December? The 15th of December because the 15th of December 1964, Italy was the third country in the world to send an object, a satellite in the space. And this was after the United States and at the time the Soviet Union. So thank you for being with us. It's a special day for us. And we try to highlight today Italian competence, expertise, and vision in this fast-growing sector, and we draw attention to the many economic, commercial, and social benefits that space offers at both the national and the international level. Italy has always been part of the small group of visionary players which have a say beyond our atmosphere, boasting not only a long space tradition, but also a comprehensive, full-fledged supply chain of products and services that includes launchers, infrastructure, downstream services, and nanosatellites. Supported by institutions like the Italian Space Agency, the Italian Trade Agency, embassies and consulates worldwide, Italian companies and industrial districts are well known all over the world for their top quality, advanced technology, and competitive prices. Many of them are here today in this piazza, from the biggest and most experienced group to the smallest, hyper-innovative startup. In space, as well as in other domains, Italy is a reliable and trusted partner. With our European friends, with the US, and with all our other NATO allies, our defense and security cooperation has once more demonstrated its value in the challenging times that we are living. And I'm therefore particularly glad to see today with us representatives from other embassies and defense attaché offices, along with the US Air Force and Space Force representatives. Let me also remind here our decisive commitment for a UN-wide cooperation approach to advance the exploration and peaceful use of outer space, having in mind sustainability and the future of generations to come. In the field of multilateral cooperation, our leading role within the European Space Agency has been reconfirmed at the end of November in Paris, where 22 member states of the European Union agreed to boost spending on space by 17% to fund projects between 2023 and 2025. Additionally, in 2024, Italy and the city of Milan will host the 75th edition of the International Astronautical Congress. And with the same view, I would also like to underline Italy's candidacy to host the 2030 Universal Exposition in Rome, a city that is more and more at the center of a flourishing aerospace ecosystem. However, space in Italy rhymes not only with Milan and Rome. In fact, thanks to the development of 15 regional technological aerospace districts, you can find a wide and diversified network of companies and research centers in the north, center, and south of the country, and even on our big islands. Venturing farther into space and constantly moving boundaries of what can be done and achieved forward is exactly what the partnership between the US and Italy on space means. Just think of the International Space Station. Half of its habitable volume was built in Italy, as well as the logistics modules used by the space shuttles and still launched today on Cygnus from Wallop Island to resupply the ISS. The great interest expressed by many American private industries in the new race to low-orbit commercial destinations is a clear example of the potential that can be further expressed on this specific technology. Not to mention our productive collaboration in robotic missions to explore the solar system, providing pioneering scientific expertise and instruments. And I encourage you to give a look to Looking Beyond, the photographic exhibition in the auditorium. The satellite images come from the first Cosmos SkyMed constellation, its second-generation satellite launched from US soil on SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Cape Canaveral a few months ago. And more recently, Italy was part of NASA's DART mission, the first planetary defense mission in history, carrying the Italian microsatellite LISIA-CUBE, a made-in-Italy technological jewel designed by the Italian Space Agency and entirely manufactured by Argotec in Turin. These are just some recent, more specific examples, but with a larger view, I cannot but mention that Italy has been the first European country to sign the Artemis Accords. This is important, especially now that Orion has landed successfully. We are returning to the moon, and Italy will be part of the challenge. The Artemis program, led by NASA, is a fundamental step in the new era of human exploration of space, pushing the ambitions of humankind beyond current scientific and technological limits. As NASA Administrator Nelson keeps saying, the impossible is possible. And following the signing of the Artemis Accord, Italy and the United States have reinforced bilateral and multilateral cooperation for the exploration and utilization of space, an important step towards the future expansion of humanity in the solar system toward Mars via asteroids and moons. Truly the new frontier. From the new technological solutions to experimental research, from space tourism to observation services, from logistics modules to launchers, from satellites to advanced materials, from top engineers to astronauts like Luca Parmitano. Those of you who were here this morning heard him, telling his own experience of being in space, to school children. Well, Italy is there in all these sectors and all his women and men. A good selection of our best is in Washington with us today. For the rest, I invite you to fly to Italy as soon as you can, commercially, or why not suborbitally. Tried it. So as the Hollywood season approaches, I want to say to everyone, happy holidays, but most of all, really thank you so much for being with us. This was a special day for us, and I hope also for you.
Good evening. Thank you, Director Amendola. Thank you to the Consulate and the Vice Consul for the opportunity to partner on what is promising to be an excellent event. I would like to spend just a couple of minutes telling you something about the Italian Scientists and Scholars in North American Foundation, which I am honored to be the president of for the past 3 years, in fact. We are an organization of volunteers. We have over 3,300 members, and our mission is to connect, empower, and celebrate the Italian intellectual diaspora in North America that encompasses all fields of research, development, and innovation. And the participants represent the generation of Italians who were formed, educated in Italy, and who have left Italy and live and work in North America. In some cases, also, with double affiliations, but in all cases with a spirit of wanting to maintain an Italian cultural identity and also wanting to experience a desire to come together in events such as this one that gives the opportunity for us to meet with one another, make new friends, see the old friends again, and listen to an interesting conversation in fields that are at the frontier of research and development. So I want to say that as an organization, we provide a number of services in support primarily of the younger generation of researchers. We have a vibrant mentoring program. We also have, thanks to the sponsorship by some families, some institutions, and even the Italian embassy, we have awards for early career researchers. And here in this room, we have, I recognize at least 2 finalists over the years of our investigator awards. I also want to say that it is central to the success of what our organization does that we have chapters. Chapters represent the expression of the foundation on the local territories. We have currently 9 chapters, and they are distributed all over the United States. One chapter that is in its, let's say, making its baby steps is the Los Angeles chapter. We have members tonight. In fact, the speakers, Marco and the moderator, Sara, are members of the ISSNAF Los Angeles chapter. And there are others in the room. So the chapters work with the community. They represent the next generations of leaders in our organization, and they represent the partners of our institutions, such as the Consulate and the Italian Cultural Institute that want to engage with us to bring events like this together for the fruition of a broader public. I just want to say that I am thankful for those who are involved in these activities that is bringing the panel discussion tonight, the volunteers that have participated to the communication of information. That's all part of what the chapter does. And so without any further ado, given that you are here looking forward to an exciting conversation, I want to call to the stage the panelists and the moderator, and give the baton, the microphone, to my JPL colleague, Sara Susca, who is a payload system engineer for the Sphere X astrophysics mission. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming here and weathering the cold winter of Los Angeles. So definitely the word space as synonymous of exploration far beyond our planet. Today we're gonna change the perspective a little bit, and we're gonna point our instrument back to planet Earth. And I wanted to remind you guys that not even like 100 years ago, we thought that the only galaxy in the whole universe was the Milky Way. We now know that's not the case. We have more than 2 trillion galaxies, and each galaxy has hundreds of billions of stars, like our sun. And we know that these stars are orbited by planets. Well, in all these objects that we look at every day, we have not found an Earth 2.0 that we can go to right now. And even if the travel was possible. So we have heard people today, and we know we see it in what happens pretty much in the summers and winters, that more climatic drastic events are happening. So climate change is real and is knocking at our doors. So we have to find a way that is more sustainable to live on the planet. Preserving the planet is preserving us indeed as a species. Something that the Easter Island people had to learn the hard way. Definitely, that is not the way we want to go about. But preserving the planet and us as a species is not just looking within ourselves, but also outside. I am pretty sure that the dinosaurs will sign any dotted line, right, to prevent that sneaky little asteroid from crashing and burning on them, right? So we have to think about that way as well as preserving the planet. That's also what that means. All right, so today we're gonna talk about, therefore, sustainability, how the space program helps with sustainability, which we clearly want. And we have these wonderful speakers that are gonna spend the evening with us. And they bring 2 completely different perspectives. While Marco Lavalle here at Caltech, and JPL, sorry, you will see, will talk us about missions that are more traditional in the sense of the size of the spacecraft that is used, and also and the type of data that we can collect. And they are pretty much like SUV, small bus size spacecraft. So they're quite big. While David, he will talk to us about spacecraft that are really small, down the size of your cereal box. So 2 completely different perspectives. So without further ado, I would like to start, if it's okay with you guys, with Marco first. And he will, Marco, why don't you tell us about yourself, how you got here, and also a little about what sustainability means for you in the context of the mission you work on.
Okay. Thank you, Sara. Thanks everyone for coming and for having me tonight. So you asked how I got into space and why my sort of path. I remember that was after graduating. I'm an electrical engineer, so I went to see my professor and I asked him, okay, I want to do something that is at the intersection between science and engineering, but also something that has an impact on society. And so his answer was, well, Earth observation seems to be a good field for you. And he explained that there is an engineering component in the satellite, so engineers build satellite, but there is also a science component in that we need to understand our planet. And in fact, the example that he brought was that we don't know at that time, and we still don't know right now, the amount of biomass, the amount of living vegetation that there is on the Earth. So that was fascinating to me. And I started a PhD at the European Space Agency. So I spent 3 years in Frascati at the ASRIN facility of the European Space Agency, using satellite data from a Japanese satellite to detect and measure tree height, which you can use to then derive biomass. After my PhD, I came to the US to apply what I had developed during the PhD to the NASA data. So that was even more exciting because I was sort of mixing different cultures and different perspectives. And so just fast forward, today I'm happy to be at JPL. I'm still working at the intersection between science and engineering. I am working specifically on a mission, a large mission, like you said, called NISAR. Yes. And in fact, I think I have a video that we can play. So NISAR stands for NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar. NASA is NASA, ISRO is the Indian Space Agency, and the Synthetic Aperture Radar is the name of the instrument. You'll see it throughout this video, and also we might talk later a little bit more. And why is it important, a mission like NISAR? It's important because it's a tool for us to understand our planet, okay? So you ask the sustainability, and why is it important in the context of what I do? The first answer that I could give you is sustainability to me means being able to understand, to study our planet. Before taking any actions in NASA, and so what we do at JPL, we take this look at the planet. So we monitor constantly, and with a tool like a satellite, in order to answer science questions or address specific applications. A typical science question, you'll see different targets, different disciplines here. You see crop fields, ice, forests. Those are all targets that are continuously monitored. For example, it is important for farmers to know the amount of water that is in the field. So this is important for food security. It's also important, for example, to save water. So if you know where a field needs water, you can target where to irrigate, right? So there is a benefit, a direct benefit of using satellite data in that you can better manage natural resources or resources that we have all at hand, like water. Another important aspect of having a satellite like NISAR is that it is large, so it is almost often on when the satellite goes on land. What that means is that every 12 days, this is the repeat cycle of NISAR, we will be able to see a snapshot of the Earth. And so we can continuously monitor and detect major events, for example, a fire. So where it occurs, the amount, the extent, and also the severity of the fire, or even flooding. So all of us have been familiar with examples. For example, flooding you're seeing here, where we need to know where to go and send the rescue crews. So a satellite tool basically gives us that ability to know where to focalize our attention in order to respond better to disasters. So this is an example. Of course, the satellite doesn't acquire continuously over the Earth, but it does with some frequency. And so that's a peculiarity of the design of a space mission. And that actually is the second part of what I do at JPL. I work more on technology for my second I guess I would say the engineer inside me works on technology. So what you're seeing here is an animation. It is another real mission, like you just saw. It's called DARTS, not to be confused with DART, which will be covered by David, I know. So in this particular activity, we're designing the best instrument to address a specific question that we have in mind. So this is also part of sustainability. It is the other side of the medal. Is that right way to say? Where we are actually focusing on the technology and how we place and how we characterize, how we build our instrument, how we design the instrument and the actual constellation of satellites in this case. One of the questions that we're addressing here is not so much how do we detect water like before, but how do we place these satellites in orbit so we maximize the quantity that we want to measure. In this particular case is the vertical structure of vegetation and the topography. We do need several spacecraft in this case, 1, 2, or multiple, because we need to look at the same target from different angles. That is what gives us the sensitivity to retrieve and image the vertical structure of forests. And so, of course, there are other questions that that engineers and scientists have to answer to design a mission. For example, what type of instrument, what type of swath width. So that's the strip that you see on the Earth. And one of the things that we do before launching a mission, of course, we do tests. And I brought this drone. This is, again, part of that activity. It's essentially a drone that we use to prototype future missions. So this is an hexacopter. The drone itself is actually simple. What is really important is the eye of the drone, which is a box that represents the radar instrument, which you don't see here, would be just a box, with the 2 antennas. So those 2 antennas transmit and receive the energy. And that's what the radar uses to basically see and look at the Earth. So with that, hope that answered your question.
It surely does. Yeah. So thank you very much. And why don't we then go on to our next speaker? And thank you, David. Why don't you tell us from your world, which is very different from Marco's, what sustainability means to you?
Yeah, I'm going to stand. Actually, I've been sitting 15 hours in the plane to come here. So first of all, just why I started working for the aerospace business. I actually have a completely different story. I was an Army officer, so I attended the military academy. I've been an airborne Army officer for 10 years. Then I left the Army and started working for, I took a degree in computer scientist. I'm also a software engineer. And so I left the Army after 10 years and started working for a company in Italy for a couple of years, an aerospace company. Then I left the company and I went to a different location in Europe, working for the European Space Agency. I've been working outside Italy for more than 7 years, mainly working on human space flight. That was an amazing work, I can say, because I've been working with NASA at that time. I've been working with several astronauts. I've been also training astronauts. I've been working with the Russians with some Soyuz missions. And I took a lot of experience at that time. Then I decided to come back to Italy. And why? Because I wanted to give back something to my country. You know, now we usually to say cervello, rientro dei cervelli. Actually, it was not rientro dei cervelli. I was just a normal person coming back to Italy and trying to do something. What I wanted to do actually was a brand new company. Was a great timing, 2008, just in the middle of economical crisis, you can imagine. And I said, you know, I want to start doing this. And that time in Italy, the famous word startup was not even very familiar with Italy. At the same time, you know, when I started trying to go to the banks, getting something from the banks for starting a new company was almost impossible, just in the middle of the crisis. So I said, let me do something. Let me start with a small contract I had with the European Space Agency, just covering my duties. And then suddenly, you know, I started putting some of my money into my contract into, in which way? Hiring some people and trying to sell the services that we were providing from Italy to the European Space Agency. This was a great move because at that time, as I told you, we didn't have money. There was no possibility to get money. All the profit we were getting from the manpower, actually, we were putting in technologies. Had a small lab that time. As we started with a small lab. We started, on two main pillars. The first pillar was the human space flight. I was coming from that area. And I said, just trying to do something with brand new engineers. So they were coming to our premises, to our facilities, and they were saying, okay, when I took the master thesis, my master thesis was doing this. I started selecting something. And the first time I selected, just an example, something that in a few years, and a couple of years later, flew on the space station. It was an experiment regarding thermal systems. And thanks to this experiment, actually, we got some credibility. And right after, we started working on other stuff for the human space flight. We had the commercial activity with Lavazza. You say, Lavazza, why? Okay, we had the idea to bring on the space station, we are Italians, a coffee maker. And that one was amazing, I can say, because we took a lot of credibility as well. There was something like silly or simple experiments. That was not, because actually we were combining thermal together with pressure, and actually was almost like a bomb on the space station, having astronauts over there. When we came here, actually not here in Houston, and we were presenting to the board for the safety, they said, just come back and maybe you will make it. But actually, we promised the Lavazza that in a year and a half we would have been having the coffee maker on the space station. And thanks to the young engineers, talented engineers, we made it in 15 months. This was amazing. But actually, the second, we started working almost 6 years ago, was a completely different pillar. The small spacecraft. So small means like a shoes box, 30 centimeter by 20 by 10. I don't like calling shoes box, because inside you have an amazing technology. But actually we did a little bit in a different way. Because first of all, we thought about sustainability. You see here, I can say that is an amazing pollution. This is going to be even worse in the future. Pollution means whenever you have satellites and maybe they're going to collide together, they're going to create other small pieces, and it's going to be a disaster in the near future. There is no strong regulation for this. And so we said, okay, we want to do something. However, it's small, actually is capable and reliable at the same time. Reliable means also long lifetime. And if you have something with a long lifetime, you don't require every time to ship or to send or launch new satellites. These satellites can be also combined in constellations, and this means constellations means more services. And Marco was just presenting a few satellites together, means more capabilities. And we just won a contract with the Italian government for 40 satellites for the Earth observation. Maybe we're going to talk together later on this. But at the same time, of course, those are some of our facilities. So we said we were in touch with the Italian Space Agency. The ambassador was talking about mission. The mission was DART, and the satellite was LiCiaCube. It's almost there. And actually it's here. It's even better, because this is collaboration. APL is Johns Hopkins University, and the satellite, my people, actually, some of my people, they are sitting inside the Johns Hopkins University and APL, just mounting the satellite on their main satellite. The main one you see here is the DART mission. Maybe you heard about the asteroid. So just a few months ago, this huge satellite went to impact to an asteroid at 11 million kilometers from Earth. And at the same time, 15 days before, the small satellite you see there actually was detached. So was detached from the main satellite. And so we got the signal in our control center. As soon as we got the signal, actually, the satellite was following the other main satellite, so the big one you see here. And for 15 days, we have been following the satellite, the main one, until the main one went to impact the asteroid. And what happened? Why NASA and Italy did this, just to see if there was any possibility. This was the first planetary defense experiment. If there was any possibility, maybe in the future, to deviate, modify the trajectory of an asteroid. And this was made, was possible, was successful. But right after, so the main satellite, so the one on the left side, done by APL, NASA, had a camera, and the camera, of course, stopped working as soon as, of course, the main satellite went to impact the asteroid. And so the second, let me say, satellite, the small one, 30 centimeter by 20 by 10, was called, actually, is called Licia Cube, and was following everything, but at the same time in autonomous way with an automatic and autonomous navigation system, was following everything, trying to get the images, trying to, of course, not be impacted by all the debris after the impact, and capturing all the pictures. These pictures, they were very much important to the scientific community, just to say if everything was going well. But let me explain you something. This impact actually happened at the end of September. The last connection we had with our satellite was at 3 p.m. local time in Italy, because all the other antennas were routed to the DART main satellite. The impact happened 1:14 a.m., okay? So 3 p.m. we got the last communication with our satellite. 1:14, the DART was impacting the asteroid. The connection with our satellite happened at 4 a.m. So we didn't have the connection in 13 hours with our satellite. What does it mean? It means that we were waiting for the first connection just to know if the satellite would have been surviving. You know, we went through all the debris, in the middle of all the debris. In an automatic way, the satellite had to recognize the object, so that the asteroid, had to approach the asteroid, had to stabilize the satellite. 7 kilometers per second was the velocity, and at the same time had to rotate in order to capture the images, and at the same time, you know, going away. Everything, I can say, was done autonomously. But in space, every time you go there, it's the first time. You can try simulating everything. You can try having all the simulations or whatever, but actually it's going to be the first time. Can you imagine, you know, just the illumination of the asteroid would have been changing totally in case would have been wrong on our simulator. And so what happened? That night, I was sitting very close to the operation manager in Torino, in our control center. It was a long, very, very long night. And this was what happened that night.
My goodness, 3, 2, 1. Wow. We're getting visual confirmation.
Vede che sono teso? No.
Wow, ragazzi, al centro.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to both of you. So now we know we can one-up the dinosaurs. I would like to ask you guys a few questions. We're gonna tag team here, and then I'm gonna leave some time for you guys to ask questions. But if you don't get your question answered, there'll be an opportunity afterwards. So we're gonna stay, and there is an event, so you can ask us more there. So I would like to start peeling a little bit the onions of these missions and go in more specific details. So. Marco, could you tell me what are the enabling technology and or instruments that you can put your finger on that are the most important for what you're trying to do?
Right, yes. I mentioned briefly while the video was playing. First of all, the instrument is it's the payload, right? So it goes on a satellite. And so the NICER satellite that I showed earlier is a large satellite. About the size of a bus with a very large reflector, that's the antenna, about 12 meters, and that is what is used to transmit pulses of microwaves energy to the surface of the Earth. That is what the radar does, transmits pulses, 1,000, 2,000 per second of energy, and then this energy bounces back to the radar antenna, and the radar antenna collects this energy with the information of what has been imaged on the Earth. And by virtue of the movement of the satellite and this pulsed mechanism, you build basically an image. It is an image that is not like a camera, like our phones, but contains information that we don't see with our eyes. It's in the microwave spectrum. So that satellite in particular, NICER, has a repeat cycle of 12 days. And so after the launch in January 2024, in a year from now, essentially we will have NICER passing over our heads every 12 days. Exactly. And so this is one of the peculiarities of the radars. The other important piece of an instrument like the radar, of that radar technology, is that we're not sensitive to clouds, or not so much sensitive to clouds and illumination of the sun. That is different compared to optical satellites that you see more often on Google Earth, for example.
So you can keep looking at us no matter what.
Exactly. That's right. Yes. That is exactly right. Well, that's a benefit, though.
That's what we want.
That's
right. That's what we want.
Yeah, exactly. You can build time series continuously, especially for phenomena that require continuous and timely monitoring.
Right.
That's what we want. And that's one of the powerful aspects of the radar.
I can imagine. And I'm going to ask you later about the data that goes with that, because that is going to be quite a bit of data. But before I do that, I want to actually move to David. And so, David, your world is different. We said that it's smaller, but that doesn't mean that it's not powerful. In fact, we carry in our phones, there's a small computer that, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we could not even imagine. We could do all the things that we can do with something in our pockets whose battery lasts for like 12 hours or even more. So why don't you tell us what enables in your world, what is enabling, what's a technology that enables?
Yeah, first of all, I think, what you said before, it's very important, because almost 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, the mobiles, they were like a 24-hour briefcase, or even bigger.
Bigger, yeah.
For space, it's a little bit different, because first of all, what is very important is reliability. And for reliability, it takes a lot of time for testing, for the qualification, and so it's not very easy to get a very with high computational capability. The onboard computers, they are completely different.
Right. So space is something people might not know. Space is actually a computation a little bit step behind what we actually use every day.
It is. And just an example, of course, we are trying as much as possible to squeeze in small volumes, but it's not always possible. Marco before was talking about radar. Yeah. Just an example, his radar cannot be carry on our satellite, because it requires more power, more volume, and more space, more room inside, and this is going to be also impossible. The same happens for the optics.
Of course.
If you wanted to have a high resolutions, just for a few centimeters or 1 meter, whatever, of course you require bigger. Physics is there, so.
Yeah, you need to collect the light.
Yeah, right. And so, it's going to be bigger. But you can do a lot with small satellites. Even more if they are reliable, you can provide services. Just an example, the 14 satellites we're going to ship to the Italian Space Agency, to the Italian government, they're going to be very capable. They're going to be optical. And at the same time, we are going to have some computational capabilities. Marco before was talking about, passing every 12 hours.
12 days.
12 days, sorry. Actually, we're going to pass every time with a huge constellation, of course. With a huge constellation, actually, we're going to pass every 2 hours. What happens that if you're going to take a picture now and you're going to go back after 2 hours in case something changes, and you have the onboard computational capabilities, you can already have the capability to compare the 2 pictures and say, hey, something is happening, a fire, floating or whatever.
Right.
This is going to be very, very important for the future.
Wonderful, yes. So we have the details and the resolution from the larger instrument, and then we have the more quick turnaround data from, the smaller one.
Maybe we can detect that something happened, and maybe there is
And
another
then
satellite
they
with
go
a high
take a look at it.
resolution.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they're complementary in a way.
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. So I want to peel the onion a little bit more and actually talk about data. I said that I was going to mention that. So can you, definitely for radar, it's incredible work because the amount of volume that you guys have to deal with, it's really magical. So why don't you tell us how you guys use the data? What goes behind understanding the data?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. And it is one of the challenges that engineers face when they have to design a mission, how to downlink all the data. So collecting the data is one part of the problem, but then you have to bring them back down to the Earth and to our computers where we have to process the data. So there is a mechanism for doing that. There are antennas and receive stations that are placed on the Earth strategically in a way that can receive as much as possible data and more for a longer period of time. Once scientists or users in general receive data, it is what happens essentially, we need to use them and so transform them in what we call actionable products, something that can tell you information. For example, what I mentioned earlier, where do we go? There has been a flooding, and where is the flooding more affecting the population or the built-up area? So where do we send our rescue crews? And so to do that, we typically use automatic algorithms. So those are pieces of code that process, scan, and parse the images automatically. You all have heard of AI or machine learning. We do use a lot machine learning these days on satellite images.
So that helps you process, right?
Correct,
So,
to extract the information that we want. Not only that, what is happening now, and by the way, I forgot to mention that all this data is free and open to everyone. So you can go online. I'm sure even the data from a company like Argotec,
and this is across boundaries of nations.
That's right. It's very democratic in a way. So everyone can go online from everywhere in the world, and that is an opportunity even for developing countries that are trying to catch up and build their own space infrastructure. It's a learning process for everyone when we look at the data. And so one of the things that is happening, and I wanted to mention this because it's one of the things that we're working on at JPL, it is shifting the way users are using the data because there are so many spacecraft, and we saw how many debris we have. We have larger missions with so many terabytes of data per day that are downlinked. What is happening is that the volume of data is just too large for users to download to their laptops and look at the data like we used to do 10 years ago when I did my PhD. That's what I did. So what is happening now, we are downloading all the data in a center, and so scientists are sort of connecting to that center close to the processing elements, and so they can basically find all the data in one place. So it's not the data that comes to us, it's us we go to see where the data are. And those centers that builds also collaborative platforms allows also users and scientists to work together
to collaborate.
On those, exactly, to collaborate.
Wonderful.
So that's another attractive activity that I think will grow in the future as we increase missions and the way we use the data.
And I think the other activity that will grow in the future will be also the computation on board. Because Marco was talking about all the data, they are downloaded on ground, and of course on ground you have a lot of different capabilities, computational capabilities. But the new frontier for the future is going to be just to have the capabilities already on board. Just an example, the satellites you have seen, however, they're very small. We put inside a lot of capabilities thanks to the machine learning Marco was talking before. This is going to be increasing in the future. Of course, just an example, the satellite I've been talking before, DART, and the other satellite that was launched a few weeks ago on the Artemis 1 was Argomoon. All the computation capabilities was given to an OBC, an onboard computer, and the onboard computer was 10 centimeters by 10 by 10. You can imagine.
Really small.
But again, I can say there are, it's 100 or maybe millions of capabilities less than my mobile here.
Yeah, your phone, absolutely.
Than my phone.
Absolutely, it's amazing.
And you know what's happening now that our software engineers usually, they had a lot of capability in their laptops.
Mm-hmm.
Now they need to learn back how to program the computers because all the algorithms, they have to be optimized.
Right.
And this is going to be a new challenge for the future. If you have a lot of capabilities on your computer, you don't go through the optimization of the algorithms. Right. But of course, if you don't have it, you have to do it.
Then you have to figure it out, absolutely.
And we learn as we go. That's actually one thing, is that all these algorithms are not set in stone. We continuously improve after missions are launched, and we collect new and data with more diversity.
I have seen data, and I'm sorry, I'm open a parenthesis, I've seen going back, looking at data with new eyes, in this case, new AIs, and seeing things that we didn't see before, first time. So yes, absolutely, absolutely. That's the importance of actually keep everything archived and open to everybody. Wonderful. I am gonna go to the next question, and if you guys don't mind. And so one thing I know folks have mentioned already today, that in 1964 we launched our satellite then, and we were the third country, right, to be beyond the Earth atmosphere. But what maybe you didn't realize is that actually was launched from Wallops, Wallops Island. So an Italian spacecraft launched by from the U.S. soil. So since the beginning, really, of the space program, collaboration has been like something present and important. I think even more now that we do feel the urgency, right, of what's happening on the planet and collecting the data to safeguard it as much as possible. Collaboration must be even more important. So I want to start again with you, Marco. Why don't you tell us about what you see from your perspective in terms of collaborations?
Yes.
In a sustainable, mission.
Yes, no, I do see a lot of collaboration across space agencies, across countries, across communities too. So collaborations happen at all levels of the development of a spacecraft. Could be from the conception of a spacecraft, scientists or agencies meet together. For example, NASA and ESA, the European Space Agency, meet regularly to discuss what type of future mission do we want to launch. So that happens. So it's really like in the conceptual formulation phase. It happens when you have missions, and I think we saw examples, even the NISOR mission that I showed, that is actually a NASA that is partnering with the Indian Space Agency, the ISRO. And so they're building two different instruments. Well, the instrument is the same, but two different characteristics, the different properties, the wavelength is different. And so one way, I guess, to answer your question, Sarah, is one reason why we want to collaborate is to extend the capability of a mission, to extend the temporal duration, the lifetime.
Like the lifetime of the mission.
That is actually something very important because we do need, to answer some of the questions, we do need some longer time series, some longer acquisitions that are often beyond the time scale of a typical lifetime of satellites, 3 years or 5 years. So some of these science questions require data collected over decades. And so for that, sometimes collaborations are critical.
Wonderful.
That is my perspective on collaboration. There is, of course, the users also.
Right.
The collaborative platforms I mentioned earlier, that basically breaks all the boundaries between users. So users can connect from all over the world to the same platform and start chatting. So these platforms often have a chat or some mean of communicating through forums or interacting through messages. So that is also another way of
very important to
absolutely. That is not at a high level.
It fuels the collaboration even more.
It starts from sort of the lower working level, the bottom up. That's right.
Absolutely.
And I think the same is also for the big programs. Just an example, International Space Station, from my point of view, would have been almost impossible to make alone just one country. The same for the Artemis. Right. Going back to the moon, having most likely a colony on the moon, this is, it's going to be impossible just for one country.
Absolutely.
Not only for resources, even more for resources, but also for know-how. So sharing the know-how all together, the scientists, the industries, this is very much important. And the missions we were talking about would have been almost impossible just for one country. The DART mission is an example. It was possible for just one country, but at the same time, the scientific community had to exchange ideas, had to exchange images, had to exchange data. And now, of course, there is an international community there. They are analyzing all the pictures we took during the DART mission. The same, for the International Space Station. We have been responsible for all the experiments going on the station for 3 years. But every time we have been exchanging ideas, we have been exchanging data, we have been exchanging know-how together with other countries like USA and others. So it's definitely impossible to go alone.
Absolutely, we won't be able to achieve as much. No. I'm with you.
Maybe it's going to be possible, but it will take
much longer.
Much longer. And of course, on the other side, there are the resources, because if you have more people, more countries, you share also resources and risks as well.
Absolutely, agreed completely. Wonderful. So I would like to do a time check, see how you guys doing, since I'm between you guys and going out and talking to these folks one-on-one. So are you guys okay? Do you have questions that you want to bring up? I don't see you very much because the light is shining into my face. So somebody needs to be in my eyes. So do we have any specific questions for our speakers today? I can't see.
Could be any type of question, I think.
Let's put them on the spot. Yes.
Thank you all for your efforts. I just wanted to ask, with the DART mission, what was the final conclusion? Was there a deviation in the course of the asteroid? And I guess people are studying the impact and all of the debris that just to study the physics of a collision in space. But any early estimates?
Yeah, actually it was a success. There was the possibility to change the trajectory. So the data says that was really successful. So in the future, in case there will be any problem, there are no asteroids impacting right now.
Not right now.
The Earth will be ready to go
we are ready.
We are ready. We are ready. Yeah. And now the scientific community, they are all collaborating together just to see the kind of the composition of the asteroid, thanks to the images that were taken by LiCHA-Cube.
Wonderful.
Yes, I have a question for Marco. I wonder if your microwave data can enable perhaps better calibration or validation of climate models, or perhaps the identification of lithium or cobalt locations, which are hard to identify, or can it determine the magnitude of CO2 sinks that are filling up, particularly in the ocean? So I wonder, from a broader standpoint, what's the scope of the data that you're collecting?
Yes, that's a good question. It goes into the technical side, so I guess short answer is yes. Quite maybe not directly, but indirectly. For example, you mentioned CO2, I believe. So NISAR specifically will measure the above ground biomass. So it's on land, so not in the ocean, and up to a certain level. And so with that, you know where there are sinks and sources of carbon and where they're located, and the amount also of the biomass that is basically distributed. There are, but you also asked about the microwaves in general. So there are ways of designing missions that allows you to do more with microwaves than just one single spacecraft like NISAR. And that's basically the other sort of mission concept that I showed later. That kind of mission concept could enable the retrieval of more accurate and also on a broader range of for example, biomass, which then goes directly into it's one of the inputs into the climate models, of course, because climate is affected by vegetation and CO2. The carbon cycle is essentially one of the main components of the climate models. So that is definitely a powerful tool within sort of the climate models that scientists use.
Wonderful.
So I have a question. So we talked about a collaboration with different entities, even outside of the spatial industry, to say it as it. So how do you envision what will need to be done, maybe on a more legal standpoint, to achieve a sustainable space? You mentioned earlier, like the debris that are, flying around the outer space, which is kind of a irregulated real estate, if I might say. Mm-hmm. So how that's going to be key for you to continue developing the sustainable program?
Yeah, definitely it's a good question. There are already some rules. It's not always easy to have the rules respected by all the countries, but we are going there, at least for some countries that are already collaborating together, like USA, Europe, Italy, and others. It's easier. For other countries, it's not going to be easy to have rules accepted for all the countries. Let me say this is the answer.
Yes.
However, just an example, whenever you launch a satellite, at least within Europe or USA, you have to have at least a plan for the orbiting of the satellite. You should have on board a certain quantity of propellant. As soon as you finish the mission, that propellant has to be used for the deorbiting the satellite. And other rules like this. Yes. So, and this is respected by most of the countries, I can say.
Yes, definitely. That is true for me too. And my type of missions I have to deorbit, I have 25 years in which I have to deorbit, and even if I don't have propulsion, the spacecraft has to be in such a way that I can come back and burn in 25 years. I think we have time for maybe one. We have many hands in the air, so I would like to take, it's great, by the way. So I would like to take maybe one more or two more at the most, and then we'll talk to you guys. I mean, they will be here for you guys.
Go ahead. Excuse me, I have a question about the photograph that you show with all the debris around the planet. We've been talking about this type of debris for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know if you know of anything, any programs that are in the work to clean this up. Is anybody actually coming up with plans and with a mission to do this, or are we still just talking about it?
No, there are studies, there is a bunch of stuff. So definitely, first of all, we monitor them. That's the first thing that was started and that was not there. And then there have been a bunch of programs. So I know of some, I'm sure that David can provide, but there is. Go ahead, David.
No, actually, there are a bunch of programs, different programs. You know what happens that if you have a large object like a satellite, this is not a problem. The collisions are really a problem.
Yes.
Now, for each satellite, you have to have a special dedicated position within the flight control team, outside the flight control team, that has to monitor in case there is an impact with other objects. And so you have also to have some propellant inside just to have the avoidance maneuvers. So it's going to be not easy.
Right.
Not easy in LEO, low Earth orbits.
Yeah.
And we're making a lot of progress, I can say. The programs, there are a lot of programs, as I told you, from different countries, USA definitely, Italy as well, Europe as well.
Yeah.
There are a lot of studies, but nothing concrete, nothing real. Again, not for the huge objects, but for the small objects. These are only monitored by different radars, by different telescopes, etc.
Yeah, and the small ones, they can make a lot of damage.
Yes.
A lot of damage. Don't, like a grain of sand.
Yeah. And just an example, for the International Space Station, they have already to apply a lot of avoidance maneuvers,
Yes.
just for avoidance the collision with small objects.
Marco, you seem
No, I remember reading about an explosion of a satellite some time ago that was even making everything worse.
Yes, yes.
One country made a satellite explode, and just to demonstrate that they could do it, I believe. And so, yeah, so
It's
there are
tough.
cases also like that. So
Yes.
space is, unfortunately,
but
up everyone.
Yeah, I am an eternal optimist, and I think that we eventually will all come around, and I am pretty sure that people will understand the importance of it. And we started a long time ago, but I think it's gonna pick up more and more pace. So I'm checking the time. I know I keep checking. So it seems that I know there are more questions, but I'm thinking of wrapping it up for this event on the stage. But again, like I said, they will be here for you guys to talk. So if it's okay, I will stop now. Stop talking. Thank you.